Now that we've shown you how to use OpenSCAP within RHEL, I'd like to show you how to use OpenSCAP within Satellite. There are a couple of prerequisite steps that need to happen before we can begin. The first being we need to make sure that the Foreman plugins for OpenSCAP are enabled as part of the Satellite installation. This either could have been done at initial installation time or in a subsequent post-installation step, being sure to be mindful of the answer file and the satellite installer command that you used at that time. The second step that needs to happen is we need to make Satellite aware of the OpenSCAP content, and we can do that with the listed hammer command here, uploading that data stream content for OpenSCAP so Satellite is aware of it and we can begin to make use of it and create compliance profiles from it. Lastly, we need to load in the Ansible OpenSCAP role. This becomes available as you enable the OpenSCAP Foreman plugins that we talked about in step 1. And we go into Configure and Ansible roles and import this Ansible role into Satellite so Satellite's made aware of it for us to use. So moving into Satellite now, we've gone into hosts and SCAP contents. We can see that the data stream data is available here for Satellite to use. We also see that from the previous RHEL demo example, I've uploaded the customized data stream content that we made with our tailoring file. And I've also brought in the tailoring file from that example as well for us to use. So now that Satellite is set up for us to use, let's go ahead into hosts and policies and create a new compliance policy. This will bring us into a wizard where we will make some selections of what we want to include. In this case, I want to use Ansible as the deployment option for this policy. I'm going to give the policy some basic names and descriptions. And I'm going to choose, in this example, the customized data stream content that we made in the previous example. And I'm going to give it our tailoring file. And this also references the exact same fields that the OpenSCAP Workbench tooling does as well. And you'll see that represented here. We'll move on to creating a schedule for this policy. You can customize this similar to cron. I'm going to choose something weekly. And it will ask you to confirm the satellite location and the organization for the policy, as well as choose a host group. And so I've created a host group called OpenSCAP Clients that we'll use to associate this policy with. And so now that you can see, we've got that RHEL CIS custom policy created. And so now if I go into Configure Host Groups, I've got my OpenSCAP Clients host group. And here what we're going to do is we're going to associate that Foreman Ansible role with this host group. And so I've made sure that these assigned Ansible roles here are both the Foreman SCAP client as well as the Insights client. And so what this is going to do is when we run the Ansible roles against this host, it's going to set up both Insights as well as the Foreman SCAP client on this server here. And it's also going to run a baseline scan for that compliance policy that we've set up, according to the schedule that was implemented, which was weekly on Sunday. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select the Web3 web server, and I'm going to run all Ansible roles against it. And so what this is going to do is it's going to use Ansible as the remote execution piece to go out and manage this host. And it's going to both set up Red Hat Insights on it, as well as the Foreman SCAP client. It's going to set up those pieces. It's going to set up a cron tab entry that performs baseline evaluation of that customized CIS compliance policy that we set up. And it's going to deploy all that on the system here, and we'll give it a few minutes for that to happen. Okay, that job's done, and we'll click into the Ansible playbook output, and we'll see that the Ansible tasks have kicked off. They're applying the roles of the Red Hat Insights client. It's installing the client, it's configuring it and setting it up. It's also running the role for the Foreman SCAP client, configuring the client package as well as setting up a cron tab entry and creating the configuration for applying that CIS compliance policy that we set up. And so moving over to the Web3 server, I'm showing the configuration file that was set up by the Ansible role. And we see that there's a cron tab entry made here for the Foreman SCAP client. And specifically, this command here is going to run our CIS compliance policy every Sunday. Additionally, it's set up this file as well, the Foreman SCAP client config.yaml, which sends a evaluation report over to Satellite of that baseline compliance scan when it's done. And you can see at the bottom of this policy is the link to Satellite, where the client downloads both the data stream content as well as the tailoring file in which to use in the baseline evaluation of the compliance policy scan. Now, instead of waiting a week for this cron job to trigger, I'm going to run this command manually. And you'll see here, very similarly to the RHEL demo that we just did, the OpenSCAP eval command here is what gets run as part of this Foreman SCAP client process, and a resulting XML report gets sent over to Satellite for consumption. And so moving back over to Satellite, if I go to Hosts and Reports, we should see the recently uploaded report for web3.dev.ludwart.ca server that we just ran the baseline scan on. And we actually see that the tests have passed, and that's because I had ran the -- remediate flag at the end of the last RHEL demo. And if we click on full report here, it'll throw us over to the HTML version of what we had generated previously. These get shared and uploaded to Satellite for easy consumption as well. And we'll get a breakdown of the compliance and the scoring rules here. And we'll see that this customized policy, very similar to the RHEL demo, only has one rule in it, and that is for the disabling of the SSH root login. And we see that this server passes that compliance test. And if we go into the policy again, we get a dashboard available to us. And so we've only got one host here populating this data, but it gives us a nice breakdown of our different policies and the number of hosts and a compliance scoring respective of all of them. So we can get a quick snapshot of which hosts in our environment are compliant to our policies and which ones are not. Now I want to show you some of the remediation pieces as well. So if I go into host and job templates, I want to show you the Ansible playbook that we generated out of the previous RHEL example as well. We've made that available to Satellite, and it's available both as an Ansible role and as a job template. And so this is what that playbook contains and looks like, and you'll notice if you watched the previous RHEL demo, it's exactly the same thing. And so we are going to use this playbook to remediate a system, and I'll show you what that looks like. So if we go into hosts and all hosts, I'll select my Web3 server again, and I'll go select action, and I'll go schedule remote job. So this is a way within Satellite that we can do remote execution of Ansible jobs or playbooks against a host. And so I'll pick Ansible playbook. It's auto-selected the policy that I want, but there's quite a few options here as well if you wanted to do something different with Ansible. And it's already got the web server populated on it. And so I can run this, and what it's going to do is it's going to apply that fix from that initial baseline scan to the Web3 server host. And we'll give it a few minutes to complete that. Oh, that went quicker than I thought. It's already finished. And so we'll click into the Ansible results. And we'll see that that playbook made some changes to the host and remediated the compliance concern from the initial baseline scan eval that was done. And so moving back over to the RHEL host now, we will take a look at the configuration file that Ansible playbook supposedly had changed, just to confirm that the fix has been applied. And we do see that configuration item now present in the SSHD server configuration that denies the root login on the SSH service.